Hey, welcome to another edition of Agri-Talk. This is Mike Thompson along with
Kimberly Roush.
Kimberly Roush. And this week on Agri-Talk, we have Emily Weeks from the OSU South Centers.
Hi, welcome.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I work with OSU South Centers in the Soil, Water, and Bioenergy Department. I've been with OSU for about 3 years now. I am a research assistant. I work under Dr. Rafiq Islam. I studied environmental engineering technology at Shawnee State University and graduated with my Bachelor's of Science in 2012 and have been working then with OSU since then.
So you from this area?
I am from Waverly, Ohio. I went to high school there and then commuted to Shawnee when I was attending.
Okay. So you're a research assistant. What are you researching?
We have several grant projects that we work with and have field experiments then in the summer. And we also have bioenergy experiments. We look at warm season grasses. We look at some tillage projects with our research that's in our field for organic research or maybe a certain crop research.
Now we just recently took a little tour down there. Tell us a little bit more about bioenergy. What is that exactly?
Bioenergy is something new that we've been looking at for probably 2 to 4 years now down at South Centers. We focus a lot on grasses. Bioenergy is something that is supposed to be harvested 1 year and then will quickly regenerate, and you can maybe harvest it the next year or maybe 2 years later. It's just an additional crop instead of your traditional corn or soybean. So the type of grasses we have native warm season grasses. And Yogi Rout, who is a PhD student working with us at South Centers, he does a lot of studying there. And we also have what's called Miscanthus gigantus. It's a tall 8-foot grass that we've had a lot of success growing. And
Is that sort of like what do they say, pampas grass that people have, but ornamental on their properties in a way?
It's like another variety that you might see out in someone's front yard as an ornamental grass. This one they look maybe at using like the breakdown of it for like maybe some ethanol. They looked into it for some jet fuel purposes. And then we have the VA hospital in Chillicothe. They actually asked if they could try it, and they're going to burn it kind of like as a pelletized version in their incinerator to heat their buildings.
So how would you make jet fuel out of grass? Is that like
It's all the
distilling it like whiskey?
It's all in the chemical breakdown of it and pulling certain elements from it to make your jet fuel. They don't tell us all the technical details on that one. So
Did you get to see it?
I think so. The other ones you had mentioned, soybeans and something else. Do they use that for biofuel also?
Not in this case. You have your E85 ethanol from corn, but
So that's corn.
Not with soybeans as much. So
Okay.
It's pretty impressive when you get to view it if you get an opportunity to do that because it's huge. It's really tall. It's 8 feet tall.
Yes, it's very, very tall. We're amazed at how quickly it grows and how adaptive it is to our environment, especially with the type of soil we have. We have a lot of clay, and it's kind of marginal land. It's not your best type of soil, and it's growing very well.
So it sort of grows maybe along the lines of like bamboo does in certain places, or?
I could see it. You could say it's kind of in the same area as bamboo. It can be a little bit aggressive of a plant.
Is this something we should watch out for? I know it may be a touchy subject, like kudzu took over down south.
It's not as bad. It's nothing like that. It kind of has its own like root ball system. It doesn't spread as much, but it does take a lot of water, so it could take water from other plants if it's nearby or something like that.
Okay. Now, what other type of things were you researching there?
So we have field experiments. We look at tillage treatments. We have
So what's a tillage treatment? I'm not a farmer.
A tillage treatment is we have your conventional tillage, and then you have no-till systems. Dr. Rafik is a very big proponent in no-till, so that means that you're not going to disturb your soil, or you have very
So in
minimal.
the spring, I'm not running a plow and a
That's
disc
right.
through the field.
Right.
Okay.
That's burning money. It takes more money to just run your equipment through that field instead of just planting directly. And you also lose money in your nutrients. You're burning carbon that that plant needs. So that's one of the reasons we don't like to till our soil, that we're trying to go to the no-till system.
Then you just plant right over the top of it, just seed drills or something?
For the most part, you might have, we've tried some rye mats to help reduce weed pressure for soybean. So that might be something that you might have to flatten or kill off first. But you are mostly taking your drill and planting then right over.
Now, would you, within that project, are there certain things that you might grow to turn under?
So one of the things that we do plant in addition is what's called a cover crop. These cover crops are planted after you've harvested your maybe corn or soybean, and then it grows up until your frost. Some of them then die off in the frost. There might be some things that come back in the spring, like your rye. It could be like a winter pea, which brings nitrogen to your soil, and then those might need tilled under in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned being the manager of the lab. What exactly do you do in the lab? What do you test for?
She makes those evil laughs and with the beakers and things. Whoa!
Yeah, I do a lot of experimenting with different chemicals. So we collect samples monthly from our different research projects. We might collect a soil sample or a gas sample, or maybe even a water sample. And those have to come back into our lab then at our facility. We have a processing lab where we kind of get everything prepared to do some chemical testing. And then we have a lab where we do all of our chemical processing. We have some advanced equipment in there to help us with all that. We look at different things such as nitrogen, phosphorus, ammonia in those samples, just to see if we're keeping on track with how we want to improve our soil. Are we doing things that are harmful for our soil? Are we doing things that are good for our soil? That's kind of what we're looking at in that way.
Now, did you bring a picture today of the?
Yeah, I actually did bring a picture of one of our labs. So.
Do you just want to roll through all the pictures?
Sure,
right now?
and I can explain some of those.
Okay.
So this is our lab facility. This is our chemical lab. As I said, we're really fortunate to have some advanced equipment to look at our different elements in our soil, like nitrogen and phosphorus. We also have things like a gas chromatograph to help us look at our air samples that we take, and that's really to see how your soil breathes. I think our next picture is one of our farm crew helping us plant our Miscanthus grass. That's that green plug that you see on the bed, and it's just a plug plant. And that is the first year, obviously, where we planted. And that year, it probably was about 6 feet that year, and we harvested.
6 foot tall?
6 foot. So.
Now, is it a very thick grass, or is it thin?
It's pretty thick. You actually wait till the frost comes, and it'll drop its leaves, and you kind of actually harvest the stalk part of it.
So it's dried by the time you harvest it?
Right. You harvest that stalk, and right now since we're giving it to the VA to look at some burning it for fuel, they
Would you
kind of cut
bundle
it
it,
like
wrap
wheat.
it?
Yeah, they bundle it in a round bale for this purpose. So.
Very nice.
And these are just a better picture of the plug plants, and you can see they're not very tall there. And as I said, they got to about 6 feet probably in that first year.
And then you just cut them off, and then they regrow the next year?
Yeah, they regrow.
So you don't have
the
to
next year.
replant?
Nope.
Okay.
No, you don't have to replant. That's the good part about it. Our next picture, it's not a very glamorous picture, but it's a picture of our sump houses. These are connected in our field research studies. It's actually connected to 2 plot areas, and then all the water that drains off of that plot is collected down in these basins. And we can see just how much runoff water you're getting, or how much is leaching through your soil profile to see what nutrients are coming out of your soil.
Because the worst example of soil that's gone bad, I think, was in the Dust Bowl days in the middle of the country.
Right. And a lot of that is just due to over-tillage for that, and it's also that you disturbed the prairie grasses in that case that broke up the soil. And your soil is like a living thing. If you disturb it, it doesn't always regenerate quickly. It takes a while. So our next photo, this is just actually testing it's called the porosity of your soil. It's seeing how that water does leach through your
So
soil.
if it's very compacted, then that
Right. If it's really compacted, it's not going to go as fast. That water will stay in that round circle for a while, and it'll take a long time for it to drain through. The more porosity it has, like maybe from earthworm tunnels and such, it'll drain faster. And that's the whole goal, that you have a good mixture so that your organisms can move through your soil.
How deep should that be that you're worried about porosity?
Well, you have your different root systems, and then you have, your layers of tillage that they do. They might only do the top 3 inches, they might go to 6 or 8, and so that's where we're really looking at. Normally when we collect a soil, we're looking at your top 12 inches of matter. We can do deeper ones of maybe a meter to look even further down. It all depends on what you're growing or looking to achieve in that part of your soil.
Now that lab, one thing I was thinking about when I visited was, is this the place where, say if I took a soil sample in my yard or field, is that where it goes to?
No, our site does not take outside soil samples. We don't want to compete with other businesses that are trying to do that service. So we do provide a soil test kit that someone might buy so they can do some testing in their off years, and you can see that on our website to purchase it. But we recommend that you send your soil samples. You take several in different locations of your yard or your field and send that into a service that does do that professionally.
I was thinking, I did that a few times through the extension office.
Yes, they have had that in the past. I don't know if they're currently doing that right now. You can always contact your local extension office to see if they are, or they might recommend a place to send them to.
Yeah. The only worry I have in my yard is I don't have grass growing under one of my back trees. I'm not sure if it's the tree that's taking everything out or if that's where my dogs go.
That could always be the case. You never know.
So what other things are you doing down there? Are we done with the pictures? Okay, that was the pictures.
So we also have, this past summer we had a study with Battelle Memorial. They provided some soybean pellets to us that's actually made off the soybean hull. You collect that after your combine would go through. And they were looking at phosphorus studies with that. So the picture I showed of our what's called a sump house and that water drains through, you'd have a sock of that, then that the water passes through and it absorbs the phosphorus from your runoff water or your leaching water. So, and that's a big problem with the Toledo water incident. The algal blooms that were created.
The algae?
Yeah.
Okay.
They are really caused by a lot of phosphorus that gets into your water, and a lot of that comes from agricultural sources.
And as agricultural sources, you're talking about chemical spraying and fertilizers and stuff like that?
Putting down your chemical fertilizers and spraying.
So Is there anything that you can tell just by looking at a field, or, it's like, well, that's got too much of this or that, or if I should put lime on things, or...
One of the biggest things that you can really see, we've done some studies on compaction. A lot of farmers like to run a certain path through their fields so that they kind of reduce their compaction. And you might see that in your field where your corn just is not growing as tall in that certain spot, and that's because the root system maybe can't get as deep to get more nutrients or enough water for that year. It all depends. So that's one of the biggest things that you can see in your soil in your field. You can see other things such as maybe some nutrient deficiencies where maybe the leaves are a different color, they're not that nice green, and they might be more yellow this year because...
So what would that tell you?
Normally that's a lot of nitrogen.
Nitrogen makes it more green?
Nitrogen makes everything nice and green.
Right. So what would the phosphorus do?
The phosphorus is what your plant takes up, and it helps it grow taller and just produce better.
Okay. Is that part of the, when you go buy fertilizer 12, 12, 12, it's nitrogen?
It's N, P, and K. That's nitrogen,
Okay.
potassium, and then phosphorus.
Okay. So what would you see out of potassium? Deficiency or overage?
A lot of potassium can lead to diseases in your plants if you don't have enough. So that's one of the key things why you add that part for fertilizer.
Can you go overboard with potassium or not?
There's always the case that you might. That's why you are always supposed to soil test and not guess. You're always supposed to send those samples in and see how you're doing with that.
Okay. Let's see. What you got? You got something root washing?
Well, for root washing...
Is that like foot washing for plants?
In a way, it kind of is. I guess you can look at it that way. So
Just in there.
we've done that a lot with our bioenergy experiments. We really want to see how far those grass roots go down, and because roots provide tunnels and systems for your earthworms or other organisms. So Yogi Route that I mentioned for our PhD candidate, he took like a meter-sized sample and a large core, and then would run those samples through a root washer just to see like the mass that you're getting out of it, and it also tells kind of how your plant is doing health-wise.
You mean, is that the thickness and if it's root bound?
Not
or
quite
how
that.
deep they go?
It's like in your soil profile, then how deep they might go, and maybe the diameter or type of roots. There are different types of roots that a plant.
Are they going deeper because they're good and they're in good condition, or is that because they can't find what they need up higher and so they're just searching?
So the reason they might go deeper into the system is a good thing. That means that your plant is nice and healthy. If it's a shallow root, that just could also be the type of plant, but it might have also hit a hard pan of soil where we've compacted that particular layer of soil, and that's why the plant root can't go down any further.
Yeah, I know when I planted a tree in my backyard, I took out an above ground pool and planted a tree where that was. I had to dig the hole with like a pick and an axe.
Right.
Because it's partly clay and stone and everything else.
And that can be another thing that's in your soil. You might have a stone pan, maybe you were close to a shallow creek bed or something, and that's why your root system's not going down as far. It just gives us clues on what is actually in your soil.
I think the tree's doing okay. I don't know how much the other things are. Trees, I think, can break that up, possibly. Plus, it's got a lot of other nutrients that the dogs are providing, I think.
It sounds like soil testing is really important for farming. It does.
Soil testing is always important for any farmer. It gives us a very good idea of what we need to apply to our fields to get it in preparation for our crop that we're going to be putting in.
Do you have to know what they're going to put in before you add whatever? Because I know like evergreen plants versus some other things require different.
Every plant takes something different. your corn might take more nitrogen. That's why you always see a corn and soybean rotation. Yeah. So it's important to have that soil tested. You also don't want to put too much of something in your soil. It can harm your plants also. So that's why we always recommend that you do that. As I said, we always try and give them a soil test kit and provide it to maybe a farmer. It's just a simple test kit that all it has is really a color change that they're looking for, and it helps them identify maybe what they're doing right with their soil. And that's for health-wise, they're looking at carbon for that one. But then when you send it off for servicing through an analytical lab, they might be looking at more elements like your potassium, nitrogen, phosphorus, magnesium, things like that.
So with fertilizer, more is not better necessarily.
It is not always better. It's always important to see what you're deficient, and a plant can have too much of something. It's just like us. We can have too much of something and it causes harm to our bodies. It can cause harm to your plants also.
Sounds like it could save farmers money too. If they don't need something applied, then.
Right, it saves them money so that they're not wasting it, and maybe they can add something else to help better run their farm.
There was something you just mentioned, which I think you all talked about when we were down there, is carbon. And what's the importance, or why are you looking at carbon?
Carbon is like that fundamental element for sustaining life. So that's very important for all of us, and it's very important for your plants also. One of the things that we really encourage them to use is we provide what's called the soil organic matter calculator. It's on our website. We just ask for some general information to help us know who's using it. But that is to help, maybe a farmer wants to take off some of the residue on their field, or they're looking at maybe planting a certain type of crop, and they can put in all this information on the calculator, and it helps give them an idea what they need to do to help improve, or what they shouldn't do. So
is carbon how much the old plant life that's in the soil, the remnants?
yeah, it's how your plants break down from year to year, and some of it might be from the root of the plant. It might be from vegetation that was left, like your corn stalk or soybean hulls that are left from harvesting from the previous year.
You probably can't have too much carbon, can you? I mean, it's hard. It would probably be hard to do.
We have a lot of problems, like in our part of the state, of having low organic matter or low carbon.
Which is like a clay type of soil?
Yeah. So really for us in this area, we don't have a problem with having too much carbon. And I don't know that you would have a problem with having too much carbon also, because that plant is going to use what it needs to. It's most likely not going to take up all of that carbon, and so what is left in your soil can be used for the year after, or several years down the line.
Now, composting is one of those things you can do to up the carbon, I guess. Can you just simply put it on top of the soil and get the benefit, or do you have to like turn it in?
It depends on what kind of crop you're going to be planting that year.
Mm-hmm.
If you were doing a vegetable crop or something like tomatoes and lettuce, or fruit, watermelon, something like that, you probably are going to be tilling your soil and getting that tilled into your soil when you compost. With other applications, maybe it only needs to be on the surface so that your plant can take in that nutrient.
That's one reason I use a mulching mower, because I had my soil tested once and they said there's not enough organic matter, which I guess is organic matter and carbon kind of the same deal.
Yes, it's pretty much the same deal. When you're probably getting that, when you had a soil test, they probably give you a percentage of how much you have in it, and they might say it's too low. Mm-hmm. And so that's actually your carbon that they're looking at. They're saying this is how much carbon you have in your soil, mm-hmm. in this particular layer, or where you took your soil sample from. So,
What do you find is the most exciting part of your job? I always love to ask that question.
So we have a lot of visiting scholars that come through our facility. We've had several scholars from Turkey and a few from China and Pakistan, and they're always fun to have visit. It's interesting to see how agricultural things are done in their part of the world and other customs that they might have. It's always fun for them to share some space with us in our lab and see what they can do and what they can teach us. So I always enjoy that part.
What's the strangest thing you've seen from another country?
The strangest thing. A lot of them like to take their afternoon naps, which is not so strange, but we're
No,
just
I don't
not.
see any problem with that.
I would enjoy it, but we're just not used to seeing that, and so they'll go take like a 2 o'clock nap and be ready to go back and work until like 8 o'clock that night. So, and we're always 9 to 5 or something like that. So that's always one of their customs that I wish we could implement. And
Sure. Especially in the hot seasons.
yeah, that would always be nice.
And all the research, you have a huge team, right, that you work with at the
Yeah,
South
we
Centers?
have a very large team that we work with. Dr. Rafik Islam is our program director, and then I work under him. We also have Yogi Rout, who is our research associate. And then we have a program assistant in our front office. Her name is Sarah Strasbog. And then we also have a student worker. Her name is Emily Shope. And we have one other research assistant along with me. Her name is Hasani Jahan. So
Nice, not huge, but definitely efficient.
definitely efficient. And then we always have help from our outside crew. We have our farm manager, Wayne Lewis, who helps us plant everything, and then Tom Harker, who helps us manage some plot research also.
Very nice.
So we all get along great and work together well. So
Great.
So after you've completed this and you're done being a research assistant, what are you going to do after that? And what kind of degree will you have?
So my degree currently is in environmental engineering technology. When I get done with doing my research assistant work, I would really like to maybe look into doing some teaching, maybe some science teaching in some grade levels, maybe high school chemistry or something like that. That always has seemed interesting to me. So
environmental engineering, what does that cover?
well, your environment includes all things. So for that type of studies, you are always looking at what is in my air, how am I affecting it, how can I help it, what's in my water, and what can I do to clean it up, or in your soil. And it just affects everything because your environment includes everything. It's not just one part that you're looking at, you're concerned with all parts of it.
Do we in Southeast Ohio have a particular problem? Or just poor soil?
Well, we do have a lot of poor soil, and that's just because we have that awful clay that's down here, and it makes everything hard to deal with. But overall, maybe we have to be more concerned about our water sometimes, because we get water from maybe a certain river, everything flows down that river, and we're towards the bottom of the state, so that would always be an issue of concern with me, but that's one of the things I would look at. There could be others. And
Okay.
Very nice.
Is there anything else?
I can't think of anything. Oh, the website, where they can contact you if they need.
So to contact us for soil and water, you would go to southcenters.osu.edu, and it's soil-and-bioenergy. Or you can just go to our South Centers homepage and click on our bioenergy tab, and it'll get you where you need to go. So.
A lot of good information on that website. I know you built it, right? Initially.
Yeah, I was part of that team, so it's a lot of work and something fun to do other than maybe working in a lab or outside for a day. So.
Yeah, they do a lot of interesting things at the South Centers, and from fish, aquaculture, several other things. Can regular people just stop by and ask about things?
A lot of times we have like maybe a First Friday tour to view our aquaculture programs, or we also have First Friday tours for some horticulture programs like our hops yard, which everyone likes to visit because everyone wants to make their own craft brew, or they might be looking at aquaculture to start their next fish farm. So we have a lot of interesting things in South Centers.
Okay. Well, thanks for being with us today, Emily.
Not a problem. Thank you
And,
for having me.
Not sure what who our next victim will
not
be
sure.
next week. Do you know?
I'm not sure who's next week.
Don't know.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, this has been Agri-Talk. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in a month.